Did you know that video games are expensive? Not like buying the actual games themselves. Although at this point, I wouldn't be wrong in that statement. No, I mean actually making the damn things. Ignoring the costs of shipping physical media, you have to get a team of people to sit down, make a stupid amount of art and code, shove it into a game engine, which, let's be real, you probably don't know how it works, get some other people to test the game, find bugs, and tell you what just doesn't work, rework all of the game again, do this cycle hundreds of times until you eventually have enough scrapped material to make 5 other games, make sure that it actually works enough when you ship it that people won't complain, and then don't get depressed when Tigger's Honey Hunt gets a 6.8 by IGN. Obviously, I'm glossing over the process quite quickly here, and I'm pretty sure the team at Doki Denki Studio didn't have too much of a crisis when they forgot to pay the reviewers off, but there's a reason that the budget of video games is ridiculously big nowadays, and it's honestly amazing that even the smallest and simplest of video games actually get made. Because of these costs, you need to find ways to make your money back so your investors don't kill you. Or whatever they do. I don't really understand how businesses work. Video games have been trying to find ways to make their money back, or from other perspectives, get absolutely fucking filthy rich off of them for the past several years at this point. And we've sort of found ourselves in a hellscape of crappy monetization practices. Imagine if you walked into a physical shop and instead of just buying a shirt that you want that you know they sell, they show you 2 shirts that you don't want, a belt, some shoes, and a random bag filled with actual shit. And when you say, "Where's the shirt? I know you sell that shirt," they say, oh, that's sorry, we don't sell that right now. We might have it on offer soon, though. You should come back tomorrow to see if we have it. Fortnite. But in the realm of fighting games, we're somewhat behind the rest of the gaming community, and the genre is now only coming into the age of scamming the customer. Oh, sorry, the correct term is apparently the live service business model, which, if I'm entirely honest with you, is pretty strange. The point of live service games is that they're supposed to be the one game that you play all of the time. But fighting game players have been doing this for literally years already. We have a whole community based around it. But this genre has been around for a long time. So they've had to go through a bunch of different changes. So how about we have a look back at the past, see where we are, and speculate about the future. Let's talk about fighting game monetization. Back when fighting games were first becoming popular, there was this mythical area known as an arcade, in which apparently gods of games would stumble into and immediately wipe the floor with everyone in attendance until these newer games made combos easier or some shit. I don't know, I'm 24. The arcades were a great breeding ground for fighting games. However, they were so long ago that I have never actually been in a proper arcade. So I have nothing to really add about how these things made people money. If I was to take an educated guess, when you're selling an entire cabinet instead of just one person a disc, it's a lot easier to make your money back, and developers tried to make bosses and single-player modes in these games harder so people would dump more money into the cabinet, so then the arcade would make more money, so then more people want to buy that cabinet because it's making more arcades money, and it's just kind of like in a loop. It like feeds into itself. Not to mention the fast-paced nature of fighting games means that they're satisfying to play if you have just one token, or whatever the price was in your region. And having them be competitive 1 versus 1 games gave you a strong incentive to dump your money in just to be that one guy, as well as getting good enough at them so that you can make your money last longer. By the time that home consoles started taking over and I actually gained sentience, arcades had begun dying out, and fighting games had to evolve if they wanted to keep making companies a shit ton of money. and thus a honestly pretty scummy practice began. The title update. If you weren't around in the fighting game community between, like, the early 2000s and as late as 2017, a title update refers to when developers re-release a fighting game, but with some added changes. Generally, these are things like balance changes, new characters, new moves for old characters, entirely new system mechanics, and possibly some bonus content, like a new single-player mode, or an art gallery, or stuff like that. Oh, well, if it's just some small changes like that, they must have just been free updates for people to download, right? Give me $60. While there were definitely title updates that came out for free, generally in the later half of the generation, I think Street Fighter 4 had like 2 free title updates, most fighting games that got title updates resold them for the price of a new game, or maybe just under a full new game price, if you were lucky. Ah yes, Guilty Gear Xrd Sign coming out at £40 in the UK, only to be followed by Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator coming out at £50 literally 1 year later. Thank you, Arx is so cool. Don't even get me started on the XX series. Arx weren't the only people to do this, but Capcom has other crimes that they must pay for, and it was a pretty common practice around this time. Hell, it even still happens today, albeit less often. Under Night In-Birth 2 is quite literally a title update from Under Night In-Birth CL-R. It may have a new number at the end of it, but it's still the same game, just with a few new characters and rollback netcode. Eventually, though, the relevance of the title update began to fade. Some companies still tried to keep it alive in a more consumer-friendly way. Capcom tried to keep it alive with Street Fighter V by having ceremonial title updates. They would basically rebundle the game with a new name and all the previous DLC, but you could still play with all the new balance patches and new characters if you bought their season passes. And while I would love to reminisce more on the past and rip into Capcom for making Street Fighter X Tekken an absolute monetization shit show, I'm on a bit of a time limit this week. So I think it's time that we stop looking at the past and drag ourselves into the present. So you guys like season passes, right? The season pass is the current hot monetization technique for fighting games. You get like 4, maybe 5 DLC characters that you think your fans would want, show them some vague silhouettes, or just straight up tell them who it is, and sell it for like 20 to 25 pounds. And congratulations, you have a way to monetize your game in the future after it's been released. This is the current standard type of monetization, and it's been something that's been mostly accepted in fighting game circles. It's not a perfect system. A lot of the time, the DLC characters have a habit of being stronger than their base roster counterparts, either because the developers want to add new crazy things to their game to keep it fresh, or more malicious reasons. Guys, if we add a new DLC character and they're broken enough, everyone will want to buy them to get a competitive edge. Why did you laugh like that? But paying for just the DLC characters and getting the rest of the updates for free is a better alternative to buying another fucking BlazBlue game. The biggest problem people are facing right now is about labbing against the DLC characters. If you don't know, labbing is basically just slang for learning how the other character plays and figuring out how to beat their bullshit. Since the developers want your money, they make it so that you cannot play the characters in the Season Pass in any game mode at all, unless you buy them individually or buy the Season Pass. This makes sense, because, again, they want your money. But then you look at the competitive scenes of these games. It's pretty common practice for competitors to lab against specific characters in order to get a better understanding of that matchup and have an edge over their opponents. However, since you generally cannot use DLC characters in training mode unless you own them, this has been somewhat of a contentious issue among some players. And honestly, I think it's bullshit. Having to pay for a season pass or even just $5.99 to lab against a gimmicky setup fucking sucks. Like, they can just be free in training mode. You're not exactly hurting anyone. Are you really gonna tell me that you're gonna lose a bunch of money because I want to know how to get out of a Jacko setup? Seriously? But while the FGC was arguing with itself on if we should force developers to do consumer-friendly business practices or not, we failed to notice the giant hammer that was coming down on us at lightning speed. Battle passes are a commonplace thing in a lot of live service type games. If you don't know how they work, basically when you play a game, you get points that go towards a battle pass. You probably also have daily and weekly missions which get you a bunch of points towards them. So players are encouraged to keep playing and coming back to get more stuff. The higher your level, the more things you unlock. Generally, they have a free tier with, let's be real, terrible items, and a paid tier where all the actual cool stuff is. Battle passes are a pretty common way to keep players hooked on games by having them have an external reward for just playing the game. The more you play, the more your battle pass levels up, and the closer you get to that shiny reward. As much as I shit on battle passes for being annoying, they can be a decent way to keep players invested in their progression, and while I do much prefer the old Call of Duty style of progression system where I just get things for playing the game, I guess I can fork over another $5 in order to relive the glory days. Battle passes have firmly made their way into fighting games at this point, with Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, and Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising all having battle passes. The only problem with them is that they kind of suck. Street Fighter is honestly one of the worst battle passes I've ever seen. All you unlock are some titles related to the battle pass theme, cosmetic items for your custom character, and some other stuff that I've completely forgotten about. Probably music or some shit. I don't know. I really don't care. It does have the cool novelty where if you buy the premium track, you can earn back the in-game currency that you spent, but also nothing in the past makes me want to buy the premium track. Capcom really went hard on the custom character angle, and it's kind of backfired if I'm honest. Like, yes! We have a Spy X family event with a custom animation for your fighting Chun-Li. What do you get in-game? Shitty overpriced avatar skins. Thank you, Capcom. The Tekken Battle Pass seems like more of your traditional Battle Pass, having a pretty barren free tier and a paid tier with just better things. But there's nothing really crazy here. Most of it's just like character customization stuff, which we've had easier ways of unlocking in every other Tekken game before this. Like, who would want any of these things anyway? Why would you ever want this hairstyle? Unless you want to have Reina cosplay as Shiori or something. Okay, so add to cart. I will say, Grand Blue's Battle Pass is quite interesting. It's shorter than Tekken's and actually gives a meaningful reward at the end of it. A skin in an Arc System Works published game. This is kind of insane. It's not enough to get me to play the game, but still. Grand Blue also has the added benefit of actually having the progression systems that I like. It's just a damn shame that I'm not Grand Blue pilled. But if we're already at Battle Passes, then what happens next? Something more along the lines of yeah. Honestly, I don't think we're too far out from this happening. With Project L beginning to peer over the horizon, I would be very surprised if Riot changed course and finally made one of their multiplayer games a flat paid fee. Also, I'm not calling it 2XKO. Fuck off. How well it does and how well it's received may convince other fighting game devs to change their ways and release more free versions of their games. Hopefully not like how Grand Blue did it. I don't think developers are going to be rushing to drop their full game price tag anytime soon, especially considering they're already putting battle passes in their fully priced games. It's going to take a while before any major changes happen. I think if that game does really well, developers will have to reconsider what it is that makes fighting games appealing to people. And I'm praying they don't see the removal of special inputs as the cause, because trust me, it won't be. And that's a rant for another day. Fighting games always feel like they're in a strange place when you compare them to other games. While other game genres have massive player counts that make my eyes water, fighting games only need a smaller player base to survive. But the times are finally catching up to us. And with the way that we pay for these games possibly about to change forever, I have but one simple request. For the love of God, do not put a rotating shop in any of these games. I beg you.
As always, a very special thanks to 64 MHz, Almost Nap Time, Ben from Canada, Cervantes de Leon, Daniel Wiederick, Edison Lottery, Fexo, Games.png, I Am Naoto, It's Riley, Knife and Spoon, Pretty Cat, MP04, Mr. Clen, Ray W, Sergeant Cobby, Super, Forcon, Tom Tanks, Velvet Puppy, Volta, and Zandatsu for being Tier 2 patron supporters.